47th gene key, transmuting the past. Programming partner, 22nd gene key. Codon ring, the ring of alchemy. 6, 40, 47, 64. Physiology, neocortex. Amino acid, glycine. The 47th shadow, oppression. The magic mirror. The 47th shadow provides human beings with one of the greatest keys to the mystery of suffering. Within this 47th gene key lurks a vast reservoir of darkness in the form of inheritable ancestral anguish. The 47th shadow is the storehouse of human karma. What we term as karma really refers to memory, but not memory as we commonly understand the term. The memory of the 47th shadow is genetic memory carried in our blood. However, this is not readable memory that can be deciphered through logical sequencing. In genetics, the 47th shadow refers to what is called non-coding DNA, also known more commonly as junk DNA. These chemical signatures are evolutionary artifacts passed down through our collective ancestral bloodlines. Although no clear function has yet been ascribed to this DNA, it accounts for a stunning 98% of our genome. This ancestral storehouse does indeed serve a huge purpose as yet unseen by science. It is the very turbine of human evolution. The hidden reason and function of this DNA is revealed in its entirety through this 47th gene key. The reason that science cannot decode the 47th shadow is because history is not linear but random, and random patterns cannot be solved through logical methods. Random patterns can only be resolved or read by fractal geometry, which reads chaotic patterns using holistic laws. The fact is that every human being carries the entire evolutionary memory of humanity within their body. This also means that we are unconsciously driven by this memory. When a person finds a way to access their deep unconscious, they are really accessing the collective unconscious. If they are not mentally and spiritually prepared for this event, they will very likely become deeply disturbed or delusional. The only language that can comprehend this world is the language of archetypes, such as the language used by Jungian psychology, the arcane symbolism of the alchemists, or the ancient totemic language of the shaman. The language of archetypes, which is what the 64 gene keys are based upon, allows us humans to look into the hidden side of our nature, to step into the perilous shamanic underworld of the collective unconscious without becoming personally identified with what we see there. When the shaman goes into the underworld of the unconscious, he or she uses the language of his own totems to navigate this realm. In doing so, he can intuitively locate the specific shadow aspects of a person's unique genetic coding and bring them to light. Whether he interprets these aspects as demons or animals or anything else is irrelevant. What matters is that they represent the specific fear patterns of a certain individual. The true psychoanalyst works in the same way. Instead of attempting to find reasons for our psychoses and fears in our childhood, he or she understands that they are really archetypal aspects of one single universal primal fear. We each come into the world with certain prime archetypes that represent our fears, and in addition to this, our life story presents other archetypes for us to address as we follow our destiny in the world. The 47th shadow is an access portal through which these deep fears flow into our waking consciousness. This is why the ancient Chinese named this hexagram oppression, because such fears become major burdens in our life if we do not face them directly. Very few people willingly confront their shadow archetypes in life. They do not want to stare down the barrel of the 47th shadow, because the deeper they look, the deeper the rabbit hole seems to go. Thus, they simply live in denial or reaction to these unconscious fear patterns, not realizing that their outer lives are a direct reflection of this repression. To really look deeply into your fears is to undergo a major transmutation, one which eventually becomes cosmic and even mythic at the Siddhic level, as we shall see. But transmutations are not a comfortable business for people at the shadow level of consciousness, because to go through such an alchemical process, you have to let go of all definitions of who and what you are. What we humans don't realize is that the grail we seek is hiding beneath our fear. The very thing that terrifies you the most is your route to a higher evolution. This is why all mainstream religions are founded upon the duality of good and evil. In keeping evil separate from good, we are actually denying the very part of our nature that will allow us to directly experience the divine. Evil is nothing but our fear manifested in the world. The programming partner of the 47th shadow is the 22nd shadow of dishonor. Your denial of your own shadow is not only a dishonoring of yourself, but of life itself. If you cannot honor yourself, then you certainly cannot honor others. It means that you listen to someone through your own agenda, so you only hear what you want to hear. You carefully edit out all that junk DNA that you don't want to look at in yourself. This whole process between these two shadows creates a biofeedback loop that conceals more and more repressed memories. We are literally reinforcing our self-limiting patterns. The ancients referred to this as the accumulation of karma. This has led to the belief that one can offset this negative karma by doing good deeds to accumulate positive karma. However, such practices never lead to true freedom because your unconscious shadows remain unaccepted and repressed. Religions such as Catholicism found a way of relieving the oppression through the process of confession. Still, confession simply lays the responsibility of your shadows onto an outer manifestation rather than assuming responsibility for your own deeper inner process. Thus, the very urge of life to transmute itself is efficiently suppressed. The bottom line with the 47th shadow is that unless you face your own unique fear archetypes, you cannot open the portal to inner transmutation that is the 47th gift. If you do not look your adversity square in the face and realize that it is the very manifestation of your own archetype, you miss the whole point and purpose of your life. Most of the world is still waiting to begin this process. Many who have begun it have become trapped in some therapeutic system that takes away their responsibility, thus further stalling the process. Facing your shadows is a lonely business, and it happens through the process of your natural destiny. It is the thing right in front of your nose that you try to avoid the most. It will not yield to being fixed. It will not be resolved through your mind, and it will keep coming back at you again and again. It cannot be sidestepped or given over to another. Your suffering is a magic mirror. It's yours to own, to appreciate, and to accept. Only when you finally stop trying to avoid it can it show you its magic. Repressive nature, hopeless. For those with a repressive bent, the 47th shadow provokes a kind of mental collapse. This is the inner oppression in which the mind is utterly overwhelmed with one's life. Because the pattern of oppression shows no signs of being broken, these people simply give up on life at a certain point. They bow to the oppression and accept it as normal. In other words, they give up all hope that their life can get better. Such people live lives of quiet compromise, locked as they are in their closed circuit loop and sealed in by their inability or unwillingness to face their fears. Reactive nature, dogmatic. Those with a reactive temperament externalize their oppression by projecting it onto others. These people use their minds to control their environment, becoming very dogmatic in their viewpoint. Because of the undercurrent of fear in such people, they try hard to solidify their mental patterns in order to give them the illusion of security. Whether the dogma be a scientific view or a religious one, it effectively freezes them and brings change to a standstill. This kind of nature finds it very difficult to relate with others unless those others buy into their dogmatic viewpoint. Likewise, any kind of free thinking or independence of mind or spirit in another is incredibly threatening to such people. The 47th gift, Transmutation, the royal art. It is through the 47th gift of Transmutation that the true purpose of your hidden genetic programming, the junk DNA, is finally revealed. Beneath what the left-brain scientists misread as chaos hides one of the great secrets of creation. What geneticists know is that all life evolves through the process known as mutation, a random organic process in which mistakes are made when long strands of genes are copied. Until particle physics came into being, the word transmutation was associated entirely with the ancient science of alchemy. Transmutation involves the complete changing of one element into another, which involves a radioactive process at an atomic level. One might therefore say that mutation is a process of gradual change that may or may not result in transmutation. When a human being faces his or her own shadows, they open the door to the process of transmutation. Hidden in the vast programming of our non-coding DNA are the scripts for the entire history of life on Earth. These scripts are jumbled and twisted around and around each other and are indecipherable to current forms of pattern recognition. However, these scripts create a huge swelling inside the individual, a pressure to continue life's universal storyline through your own life. This is why every human being has an innate sense of their own destiny. Whether you live out that destiny depends on your willingness to surrender to the pressure of this vast unconscious force coming from within. This is the force of transmutation, and it wants you to surpass yourself. If you let go into your fear of dying, that greatest fear, you will discover the gift of transmutation. Human beings are in fact a rolling wave of consciousness with no fixed identity. We are programmed to continually hit the shores of our limitations and dissolve into something else. For the majority of human beings, safe in their illusion of separateness, this is the greatest terror of all. As one of the vital ingredients in a chemical genetic family known as the ring of alchemy, this 47th gift of transmutation is dangerous. The ancient alchemists discovered the archetypes of transmutation and named them, often using the changing of colors as symbolic of the stages of the process. Although many of these people mistakenly thought of alchemy as a physical practice whereby a base metal might be transmuted into gold, a few understood precisely what alchemy really was. Alchemy, the royal art, is the natural destiny of human beings who live their life totally, embracing everything and holding nothing back. It is the art of living dangerously. This does not mean that you necessarily take outer risks. The danger is to the illusion that there is anything fixed about you. The true human is indefinable because he or she is constantly surpassing all definitions. Alchemy is life. Transmutation is what drives human beings to keep going beyond their wildest dreams. To be in the process of transmutation is to be truly alive. The process of transmutation has actually been described very well by the alchemists. It consists of an endless series of small and often indecipherable mutations leading to a finite number of transmutations. These transmutations are huge turning points in your life. To transmute is to make a quantum leap into a whole new dimension. If you follow the script hidden in your DNA, then you will experience these dimensional shifts in your inner and outer life. Many cultures, mythologies, and mystical systems have described this process of spiritual evolution because it is universal. The only prerequisite for the process to keep moving is a continual surrender to your fears. The moment one fear has been embraced, another reveals itself, and your life moves you to confront the new fear. We each have to take the lid off our Pandora's box, and in doing so, we will discover the layers of oppression that lie within us. As these layers are dissolved one by one, you discard one by one the illusions that you think are protecting you from dissolving yourself. Through this ongoing process of transmutation, you gradually sift through the junk DNA, and in doing so, you begin to see your life on a much wider level of reality. The only way to read these codes is to live them. As you do, they unwind and reveal their true purpose, to return you to the very source of consciousness from which you came. Those with the 47th gift in their hologenetic profile are people who are deeply aware of this alchemical process in human beings. The only way to transcend suffering is to move more deeply into it, embracing every feeling and event that comes to you. This is the way of deep immersion in the currents of life. It is the way of surrender. The 47th Siddhi, Transfiguration, the true meaning of the crucifixion. The 47th Siddhi represents the culmination of the 47th gene key in human form. Transmutation never really ends. It simply outgrows its casing, and this is what occurs through the 47th Siddhi of Transfiguration. This word, Transfiguration, is almost entirely associated with Christ's ascension and resurrection. It refers to his shining countenance when he reappears after his crucifixion. The life of Jesus Christ is in fact the perfect mythic enactment of all the stages of alchemical transmutation ending in this state of transfiguration. If we can escape the endless dogma and opinion that surrounds the figure of Jesus and view his life at this symbolic level, we can see the great secret of all human life. Christ's life symbolically represents the life of every human when they hold back nothing and embrace everything. There have been descriptions of similar transfigurations throughout the world. Notably, the Tibetans have many records of people attaining the rainbow body. The ancient Taoists of China also have records dating back many centuries of masters who attained a state of transfiguration. This 47th Siddhi reveals the ultimate purpose of the non-coding DNA within the body, which actually does code for a process within the physical body after all. The force of transmutation strips you emotionally and mentally to such an extent that it eventually reaches down into the physical matter of your body. The power of the myth then takes over, and the very cells of your body begin to transmute into the pure light frequencies from which they are made. The elements that make up your body were made in stars, and you turn back into a star in your own mini supernova. This is the final state described by the alchemists, the unio mystica, or sacred marriage, in which all your constituent elements dissolve back into one another, and out of your base matter, symbolic gold is formed. Like all the Siddhic states, transfiguration is not a common phenomenon. You can see how powerful an influence it has over the world through its manifestation at the end of Jesus' life. Other cultures where it has happened have been mainly insular, so popularly it has been considered legend. One might ask why it hasn't occurred somewhere more recently in the age where it could be widely reported or even filmed. The answer to that question lies within the script inside our bodies. What is certain is that it will occur again, and probably on a far larger scale than has ever been seen before. Humanity stands upon the threshold of one of its great transmutations. As a species, we are moving through the symbolic time of our crucifixion, and crucifixion precedes transfiguration. Our crucifixion means everything that is old must leave the world as a new light emerges. What must be sacrificed in the coming centuries is our modern world with most of its trappings. As with all transmutations, it is a time of great uncertainty, great fear, and great excitement. On a cosmic level, transfiguration doesn't end. The whole of our planet, humanity, all the creatures and the earth itself will eventually be transfigured. Transfiguration on a social level must include the entire planetary organism, because despite our current perspective, we are really the mind and eyes of the Earth rather than being separate from it. There will come a time when all the elements that make up our planet vibrate at such a high frequency that the world, as we know it, will disappear into a field of vibrating light. Before this unprecedented and fantastical event, which is in the far future as we measure time, the phenomenon of individual transfiguration will become more common. This is due to the activation of the 22nd Siddhi of Grace, the programming partner to this 47th Siddhi. These two Siddhis operate as one, which means that for an individual to attain the state of transfiguration, he or she has to be touched by divine grace. No one can say when, where, or to whom grace will occur, but it is an aspect of the divine feminine principle which is a part of the current cycle of incarnations. Divine grace can only touch those who work through the 47th Siddhi, because these individuals have to take on the collective karma of the whole of humanity. This is the final great transmutation enacted through the crucifixion. The crucifixion represents the individual's descent into hell, the underworld of the collective unconscious, and the complete submersion in the ancestral pain and suffering of all beings. It is to face the collective fear of humanity that lies within the heart of every human's DNA. One who reaches this level of self-sacrifice calls upon himself or herself the Holy Spirit or divine grace, which precedes and enables resurrection and final transfiguration.